All right, so what we're doing today, we are going to, I figured based off of what the test that we did the other day showed me, and kind of you said you wanted to be in like the AP reading for next time. So one of the things that as you get older and start reading kind of more advanced material, sorry, I'm trying to find my timer. What you can do is, sorry, we'll just pause that for 1 second. The most important thing when you're reading text, especially as it gets more complicated, is comprehending and understanding kind of what the text is. It can throw really hard stuff, really easy stuff, but the most important thing is that you understand kind of what you're reading. So I figured the best thing to do, especially because you did read so well, like you didn't really, like as you were reading, you really didn't make mistakes on any words. You didn't have to go back and reread, like you did an awesome job with that. So I figured the best thing that we should do is start by just learning, because I'm supposed to work with you, I think it's a total of 10 times, and we'll learn a new comprehension strategy like every 2 or 3 times, and then we'll review, and then we'll learn a couple more, and then review, and then we'll kind of put it through, and we'll show you how it can work like through all different practices. So today, the first one that I'm going to start with is, it's called Activating Prior Knowledge, and like as an early childhood teacher, which is what I do, like I teach the little ones, anytime you come up to a new strategy or anytime you come up to anything new, you want to kind of think about what you already know before you start reading, which I'm sure is kind of the same thing you do when you pick out a book at the library. If you pick out something and you're like, oh, I don't really know much about this, maybe I want to learn more, then you select that one, or maybe if you don't know anything about that, you might not select it at all. So I figured that's activating prior knowledge. Is kind of, and one of the reason why you do that is because your brain has folders where all the information is, and if you stop and think about it, and if you write about it, or maybe even just like before you're reading something for school, maybe if you just kind of write everything you kind of know about that already, it'll help you as you read to access that folder in your brain, and then as you learn new information, it gets added to that folder because your brain already has like that tab open, is the way that it was explained to me. Okay, so let me show you kind of what I mean by that. Just let me get my, oops, sorry.
You're okay, sorry, it's kind of a mess.
My house is the same. Okay, so the easiest way that I found when I'm doing activating prior knowledge with my little ones, I kind of do a bubble chart, but you're a lot older than a bubble chart. So something that you do with high school and middle school, it's called a KWL chart. Have you ever heard of that? Have you ever done one?
If I saw, maybe.
Okay,
but it doesn't sound familiar.
So KWL, K stands for what you already know.
Yeah.
W is what you want to know, and L is what you learned. So these can be like 1 or 2 sentences in each. When I'm doing it with my little kids, I always make them fill out as much in the know as possible, and then usually, because I do it in a discussion, oh, I know this, and it kind of blossoms. So what I'm going to do, another thing with teaching too, you always do like I do, we do, to do, you do. So I'm going to start and I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like, and then we'll do one, like I have this really long passage, and we'll do part of that together, and then the last part I'll kind of have you do like by yourself. So we'll kind of see how you do. So yeah, we're working with this first one where it's priming the cognitive pump in order to recall relevant prior knowledge and experiences from long-term memory in order to extract and construct meaning from the text. And it's a pre-reading strategy that you do before you actually start to see like the text. So what I decided to read is this one. Is called What's the Purpose? FDR's Pearl Harbor speech. So when I'm using this prior knowledge, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work in the know. So I know, without even looking, like I know it's right there, but I know that it happened December 7th. I know that it happened December 7th. I know that we didn't want to be involved in World War II. And when America was in that time period, we didn't want to be involved because we were still coming back from World War I, and we didn't want to jump into World War II. But when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, that was when like America kind of responded and said like, oh no, we need to do something now about this. So it kind of made people upset, and then that is how we got involved. I know that the attack on Pearl Harbor, it was the first attack ever that was on our home front up until that point, and I think even really after that, I think 9/11 is the only other one. That's the first and only time that we have been attacked. Every other war, we've always been the ones to go, and so it was frightening to see it actually happen here, and I think that that's kind of why we got as involved as we did, and we went as far as to do the bombs at Hiroshima and bomb and kill a whole bunch of people because they already had, they had come after us, so they kind of felt like it was necessary. Now, FDR stands for Franklin Delano Roosevelt, I'm pretty sure. But other than that, I don't really know anything. So do you know anything that I didn't say? Or, because you're probably learning about this more than I am.
Yeah, you cleaned it up.
Okay. So yeah, that's the no portion. And then after that, I kind of do what I want to know. So because this is a speech, and that's just like my interest. My interests are probably what did he say? Like, how did he handle, and what did he say when, he talked to people? Because I couldn't imagine being the president at that point in time and going on TV or radio and saying, like, it's going to be okay, and we're going to do, and how, like, to put into words about, like, we are going to war now because this happened. Like, I don't know how I would address that, and that would be something. And then I would probably, I don't know what else I would really want to know from that. I guess, I guess what did he say? Do you have anything that you would want to?
Yeah, like, that's a good, like, what he would say about, like, going into World War II and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, and so, that would be the what and the no, or the K and the W, the no and the what, and then when we come back, then we go to the part from what we learned. And I'll just read it just because it'll be easier, because I'm supposed to be the one doing this first part. It says, what's the purpose of FDR's Pearl Harbor speech? Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan was still in conversation with its government and its emperor looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing on Oahu, the Japanese ambassador of the United States and his colleagues delivered the Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. While this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or armed attack. It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. Okay, so that was kind of a lot. So when I kind of think about that, we wanted to know what he said, which, I mean, was right there. I didn't know. One thing I learned from here, just going back, it says 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to the Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. So I didn't know that Japan had sent anything to us. Did you know that?
No.
Okay, so I didn't. So that was something we learned. We learned that Japan sent something to the U.S. Probably something, which that's another awesome thing about doing a KWL chart. If for some reason this was something you were just doing kind of on your own, I would want to know what that note said and what it was about. So that can kind of strike learning on through another side. Yeah, I didn't know, and I also didn't know, because it says that it was a reply to a recent American message. So what did we say first? Like, what
Yeah.
kind of... yeah, and it says, while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, so that kind of says that they were already talking about it before. And it says it will be recorded that the distance from Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious the attack was deliberately planned. So that kind of tells me, as just like a person going back to the what for what we learned, the president is telling the American people that this wasn't something that was just spur of the moment. They thought about this, and because it is so far away, that was something that like had to be thought out. But I guess that I didn't really answer the question because he didn't really say here that they are going to war. Like, this isn't a declaration.
Yeah, he didn't say in specific words or anything.
Yeah, so that was something that I kind of learned. I thought that this was the speech that kind of said, like, we are going to war, but realistically, that's not what happened. So that could be another thing that we could do at a different point, is I could go and see kind of when did we go to war after that. So that was that I do piece, and you kind of helped me with that a little bit. Sorry, I don't know why my voice is so weird. Okay, so the next point I think is here. Yeah, and I will make this as big as I can. So the next point with this is going to be the I do portion. And it's not letting me zoom in. Aha. Okay, can you read that, or is it too?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So the next part would be the KWL chart, and I'm gonna have you actually do it, and then we'll kind of like figure it out together. Okay, so this passage is about tigers, and I will say that it is long. We don't have to read the whole thing, or if you don't want to read part of it, I can read part of it, and we can kind of work on it together. I will say that there is some comprehension questions at the end, and we can go back and find answers, which I'm sure that when you're grading on a test that you go back and find answers. And we can go back and do that too, but I did just want to let you know that there are. And I didn't make this, I found it. So if something's really off-putting, then we don't have to do it exactly. Okay, so I will give this over to you, a KWL chart. And like I said, the reason why we do this is to kind of go back into our file folders and kind of think everything we know. So it doesn't matter if it is what's on here. We aren't there yet, so it's just kind of whatever you know. So if I say tigers, what do you know?
I don't really know a lot about tigers.
Okay, well, what do you know?
They are wild animals, like they're
okay.
Wild.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
My handwriting is so sloppy right now.
That's why we do it on a whiteboard, because it doesn't matter.
I don't know. Tigers. They're kind of similar to lions and kind of cheetahs, I guess. I don't know. They're
the big cat family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at
No, you're doing great. Okay, so I'll help you out. When I think of tiger, what color are they?
Let's see, like,
yeah, the orange and black.
Orange and black.
And then it says, okay, so it lives in the wild. They're big cats. They're orange and black. Do you know what they eat?
I think they just eat meat.
Yeah, okay, that's a good, because I was trying to figure out what animals, but I don't think I know what exact animals that they eat.
Eat meat in general.
Okay, so they're meat eaters, and I know they're huge. They're huge cats, but I think we put that with, you did with big
cats.
Okay. I think we've accessed our prior knowledge there. That's what we know, which isn't a whole lot, which is good, because then we're going to read a whole bunch there. Okay, so now we do the the W, which is the want to know piece.
Like where they specifically found, maybe?
Okay.
I don't know. I've never really thought about knowing more about tigers.
Right. Well, we said that we know that they eat meat, but maybe, like, what do they eat? Could be.
Yeah, like food specifically. Maybe if like how they're maybe related to like lions and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I never really thought about that. How are they? And this doesn't have to be a whole lot. So if that's what we want to look for, it's where they're found, what they eat, and how they're related to lions, we can stop. We can stop there.
Yeah,
unless there's more.
How big they can get.
That's it. Yeah.
And I think that's about it.
Okay, perfect. So, because this is the we do portion, I think, because like I said, this is a really long. I think for the first part, I'm gonna have you kind of read maybe like a paragraph, and then I'll read a paragraph, and we'll kind of go together, and then maybe as we go along, we can stop and figure out where we did this, and then for the last part, I'll have you read the whole thing by yourself, and then I will ask you the kind of the comprehension questions. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you want to read the first part?
Sure. Who would win in a fight, a lion or a tiger? Well, if size has anything to do with the matter, the tiger would win. That's because tigers are the largest of all cat species. They grow up to 11 feet long and weigh as much as 670 pounds. This makes tigers the third largest land carnivore. The only larger land carnivores are polar bears and brown bears. Tigers are not only large, they are also fast. They can sprint as fast as 48 miles per hour for short distances and leap as far as 30 feet horizontally. This makes for an extremely dangerous pounce. You might not think that such large, fast, and ferocious creatures need help to survive, but they do. The tiger is an endangered species.
Okay, so before we go on a little bit, I think we answered some of our questions, and instead of waiting to read like the whole thing and then going back, and myself personally, when I'm looking for things, and especially it's a good strategy to use kind of when you're doing questions for tests or like how you said, because did you get the book for AP Lit yet, or is that what it's called?
No.
Okay, but
it's honors English, but yeah.
Honors English, and then you said that they give you questions for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one thing that you can do, and and I'm sure teachers have probably told you, and it kind of attaches with our KWL strategy too. If you look at the questions first, then you kind of have a purpose for what you're reading, and you kind of pay attention for that. So how you said that you wanted to know the size. As when you were reading it, it says they're 11 feet long and they grow up to 670 pounds. Like, my brain just automatically, like, did yours just do the same thing where it got caught? Okay. So that can be, which we don't have to write it down. But, so they're in the learned part, we learned that they are 670 pounds and they are 11 feet long, which I knew they were big, but I didn't know.
And then it said 11.
Yeah, 11 feet long. I don't think it said where they were found, and I don't think it says food or anything. Okay. Despite all of the tiger's strengths, the future of the species is uncertain. Tigers face a very high risk of extinction. It is estimated that at the start of the 20th century, there were over 100,000 tigers living in the wild. By the turn of the century, the number of tigers outside of captivity dwindled to just 3,000. Interestingly, the most serious threats that tigers face come from a much smaller species, one with an average weight of 140 pounds. That species is Homo sapiens, better known as humans. Humans threaten tigers primarily in two ways: hunting and destroying habitat.
Oh.
Sorry, I
Sorry.
scrolled it up.
No. Tigers are hunted for many reasons. People have long valued the famous striped skins. Through training, tiger skins is now illegal in most parts of the world. Tiger pelts are worth around $10,000 on the black market. Through the fur would be incentive enough for most poachers. Other parts of the tiger can also fetch a pretty penny. Some people in China and other Asian cultures believe that various tiger parts have healing properties. Traditional Chinese medicine calls for the use of tiger bones, amongst other parts, in some prescriptions.
Tigers have also been hunted as game. In other words, people hunted tigers solely for the thrill and the achievement of killing them. Such killings took place in large scale during the 19th and early 20th century, when a single Maharaja or English hunter might claim to kill 100 tigers in their hunting career. Though this practice is much less popular today than it was in the past, it has not ceased entirely. Alright, I'm going to let you go on your own.
Okay.
And then if you want to stop as you go to find the KWL chart, or if you decide that you want to add something else, I will just be here listening.
Okay, do you want me to read out loud?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Humans have done considerable damage to the world's tiger population through hunting, but perhaps more damage has been caused through the destruction of habitat. Tigers once ranged widely across Asia, all the way from Turkey to the eastern coast of Russia. But over the past 100 years, tigers have lost 93% of their historical range. Instead of spanning all the way across Asia, the tiger population is now isolated in small pockets in South and Southern Asia. This is because humans have drastically changed the environments. Humans have built towns and cities. Road and transit systems were created to connect these towns and cities. To feed the people living in these areas, forests and fields have been cleared to create farmland. Large tracts of land have been stripe-mined to yield metals and other materials used in manufacturing. All of these activities have consumed habitats that at one time supported tigers. A major obstacle. Hold on. Yeah.
I'm glad you found that.
I knew I was going to write something down.
So you're doing the where they're found
Asia.
part? Yeah.
Yeah. Asia and then Southern Asia. Yeah.
Yeah, pockets of South and Southeastern Asia.
So we just need those two.
Okay.
A major obstacle to preserving tigers is the enormous amount of territory that each tiger requires. Each wild tiger demands between 200 and 300 square miles. Tigers are also both territorial and solitary animals. This means that they are protective of the areas that they claim, and they generally do not share with other tigers. Because tigers need so much territory, it is difficult for conservationists to acquire land enough to support a large population of tigers, even when these considerable spaces are allocated. It is even more difficult to patrol such large areas to prevent poaching. There is no easy way to preserve the wild tiger population without making large sacrifices. The tiger population faces many threats and obstacles to recovery. there have been some success in conservation and preservation efforts. For example, Save China's Tigers, an organization working to restore the wild tiger population, successfully rewilded a small number of South China tigers. These tigers were born in concrete cages from parents who were also captive and unable to sustain in the wild. This organization brought these tigers to South Africa and helped them learn the necessary skills for a predator to survive in the wild. Current evidence indicates that the project was been successful. While this is just a small step, it shows that restoring the world's tiger population is possible.
Perfect. Okay, now since we're still on the I do piece, is there anything else that you need to do here with the KWL chart?
Just like in general what I learned, or
yeah, you can add more here, or if, like I said, this is the you do portion, so whatever you felt that you kind of learned, or if you have anything else to add there.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know they were endangered species.
Perfect. And just so I can kind of gather kind of if I did a good job teaching and kind of what I can do differently next time, how would you explain a KWL chart to somebody who had never heard of it before? Like, what would you tell them the strategy was for?
That you write down what you know first before you read the passage, and then like what you need to or what you want to know about a passage, whatever it's about, and then after what you learned
and
knew.
And what's the purpose of that? Like, why do you do it?
To like learn, I don't know.
So remember when we said that your brain is a whole bunch of file folders, and so each one, like how like you said, arts and crafts was your favorite thing that you like to do. So your brain has a huge folder of arts and crafts, but there's different arts and crafts. Like I see that you have the soft dough.
Bubbies.
Yeah. Oh,
Play-Doh.
okay. But there's Play-Doh's in one category, and you know that, and you have painting probably is another. Did you guys do the paint this on the wall too?
My mom did.
Yeah.
I have a couple, but we haven't hung them up.
So, but your prior knowledge tells you that when you want to make a painting like that, you don't use Play-Doh. That's just how your file folders work. So you have a whole other file folder, which was tigers. And when I said, okay, now we're going to read about tigers, your K, the no, we didn't know very much. But now we figured what we want to know, and what we learned, and our learned is a lot longer. So the reason why you do this is to access those little pathways in your brain. Because sometimes, and I was even trying to use an example when I found a passage, some of the things that I was going to use as my example was like Edgar Allan Poe or Emily Dickinson, and I'm like, I don't really know a whole lot about those. Mm-hmm. So and there's going to be times that you come across those, especially when you're taking your advanced classes. There's going to be some things that you don't know a whole lot about, but if you take the second to kind of think, okay, what do I know? I know Emily Dickinson was really, really old. I know she wrote a lot of poetry. I know Edgar Allan Poe was kind of a weirdo. He had a whole lot of different really dark poetry. I know he had a wife. I know he wrote The Raven and The Telltale Heart, and kind of whatever you know, it gets your brain practiced into going into those little filing folders. So that's kind of why you do that portion of it. Okay. Do you think you could do a KWL chart on your own if you had to?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to challenge you. Are you reading a book currently?
Yes. Perception.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you this week. Maybe, does it have chapters and is it broken down like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe before you read a chapter, and you can also, because your brain already has, because you said you're still reading it now, you already have the prior knowledge of what it's about, who the characters are, and the KWL chart can change if it's a fiction or nonfiction book, but what you already know about the characters, what do you think is going to happen next, and then the L can be what actually did. Were your predictions
Mm-hmm.
right in activating that prior knowledge? So I'm going to challenge you this before I see you next time to kind of, and you don't have to write it down every time, but maybe if you just pause and activate your prior knowledge before you read, and we'll see if that helps you come on understand it better for next time.
Okay.
And